Okay, so get this, Thailand. It's gearing up for like a mobile revolution. We're talking faster data, more competition, and a potential wave of cool new tech businesses, all thanks to their upcoming spectrum auction in 2025. So today, we are diving into a proposal that was sent to Thailand's communication regulators, right, the NBTC.
And let me tell you, it is fascinating. Just a fascinating look at how they plan to shake things up.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's not just about selling off like chunks of the airwaves, right?
Yeah.
This proposal really digs into how to make Thailand's mobile market way more dynamic.
Yeah.
Less like a sleepy duopoly and more like a bustling marketplace with benefits for, well, everyone.
Right. Because when companies have to compete, you usually end up with better services and lower prices. But first, maybe we should back up a bit. What's the current mobile landscape in Thailand?
Sure. Right now, it's dominated by two big players.
Yeah.
True. And AIS. They recently merged, which further cemented their power. And this proposal acknowledges that like a lack of competition, it can really stifle innovation. So they're looking at ways to change the game. And one of their tools is this spectrum auction. I know it can sound kind of technical, but it's basically how the government sells the rights to use specific frequencies for things like mobile data.
Exactly. Think of it like dividing up valuable real estate in the airwaves. And the way they run these auctions, it can have a huge impact on who gets access and ultimately what consumers end up paying for mobile services.
I see. So how has Thailand handled these auctions in the past?
Well, they've used different formats, but in 2020, they switched to a clock auction format. It's generally seen as more transparent and efficient than the old simultaneous multiple round auctions, or SMRAs, that they used before.
Okay, so less chance for shady deals and more of a level playing field. That makes sense. And how is Thailand different from, say, the U.S. in terms of these licenses?
That's a great question. In the U.S., spectrum licenses are often perpetual. They last forever. But in Thailand, they're for a fixed duration. This actually allows for more flexibility as technology evolves.
So they can adapt the rules of the game as new technologies emerge.
That's pretty smart. It is, especially when you consider the rapid pace of change in the mobile world. Now, speaking of change, this upcoming auction is particularly crucial because it's tied to the rollout of 5G.
5G, everyone's talking about it. But I'll admit, I still don't fully grasp how it'll change things.
Well, 5G is not just about faster downloads. It's about connecting everything from self-driving cars to smart cities and beyond. But there's a catch. The telecom industry, it's facing what they call a value paradox.
I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
Think about it. Big tech companies like Google and Facebook, they rely heavily on telecom infrastructure for their services, but they're capturing most of the profits. The companies actually laying the cables and building the cell towers, they aren't seeing the same kind of financial growth.
The ones building the foundation, they aren't reaping the same rewards as those building on top of it.
Exactly. And this could have a ripple effect. If telecom carriers aren't making enough money, they might not be able to invest in the next generation of technology, like 5G and beyond. In fact, the report even suggests that 5G might be the last G if investments don't keep pace.
Wow. So 5G could be a turning point, but not necessarily in a good way.
Right. Thailand needs to attract serious investment to make 5G a reality. This auction isn't just about raising money, it's about setting the stage for a vibrant and competitive mobile ecosystem.
Right. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. So how does the auction itself play into this? Let's unpack the design a bit.
Okay, so the proposal recommends sticking with the clock auction format, but offers two variations, simultaneous or combinatorial. Imagine an auction where prices slowly rise, like a clock ticking up.
I'm picturing those old movie scenes.
Oh, yeah.
With people frantically waving paddles.
Right. Except in this case, it's more like companies pressing buttons. As a price climbs, that's the simultaneous clock auction. It's simple and efficient. The bidding stops when the demand for a frequency block matches the available supply.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot where everyone gets what they need. What about this combinatorial clock auction they mentioned?
That comes into play. When there are strong synergies between different frequency bands, think of it like buying ingredients for a recipe. Sometimes it makes more sense to buy a whole package instead of individual items. A combinatorial auction lets companies bid on packages of frequencies, leading to a more efficient allocation.
Makes sense. Now, the report also talks about something called spectrum entrepreneurs. And to be honest, it sounds a bit like speculation. Are these just people trying to flip frequencies for quick profit?
It might seem that way at first glance, but their presence can actually benefit the market. Think of them like savvy investors in the real estate market. They might buy a property, not to live in it, but to sell it later at a higher price. Their buying and selling activity helps establish market value and can even drive prices up. to a competitive level.
So they're adding liquidity and dynamism to the market.
Exactly. And in this case, their participation in the auction could help ensure that the spectrum doesn't go for a bargain basement price, just because there are only two main players, True and AI. It's another way to inject some healthy competition.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. So we've got a transparent auction format, potential participation from these spectrum entrepreneurs, and a focus on making the market more competitive. But there's still one crucial element we need to discuss, right? The reserve price.
You're absolutely right. Setting the reserve price, it is one of the most critical decisions that the NBTC will have to make. It's the minimum price they're willing to accept for each frequency block, essentially setting the floor for the auction.
I imagine that's a tough balancing act.
Yeah.
Too high, and you risk scaring off bidders.
Yeah.
Too low, and you're essentially giving away valuable resources.
Exactly, and that's why the NBTC is taking a multifaceted approach to valuation. They're not just pulling a number out of thin air. They're looking at historical data from past auctions, comparing prices for similar frequencies in other countries, running complex econometric models, and even considering the potential financial impact on the telecom companies themselves.
Oh, it sounds like they're doing their homework to ensure they arrive at a fair and reasonable price.
They are, but they also acknowledge the elephant in the room, the lack of competition. They know that with only two main players, the bidding might not be as fierce as it could be, which could lead to lower prices.
So how do they account for that in setting the reserve price?
Well, one idea they're exploring is using a multiplier to adjust the reserve price upwards. Essentially, they'd bump up the minimum bid to compensate for the limited competition. It's a way to ensure the spectrum reflects its true market value, even in a duopoly situation.
I can see the logic there, but I have to ask, doesn't that seem a bit arbitrary? How do you determine the right multiplier? And what happens if, against all odds, another big player suddenly decides to enter the auction? Wouldn't that preset multiplier throw things off?
Those are all valid points. And the report does acknowledge the potential drawbacks of using a fixed multiplier. That's why they're also suggesting another option, something called a soft reserve price.
A soft reserve price. That sounds intriguing. That like a starting bid that's open to negotiation?
Yes, a bit more nuanced than that. Think of it like a price range with some wiggle room. Bidders can express interest even below the initial reserve. And the NBTC has the flexibility to lower the opening price if the demand isn't as strong as expected.
So it's a way to test the waters without completely undervaluing the spectrum. I like that. It seems much more adaptable to real-time market conditions. But all of this is just the setup, right? The real game changer here is this idea of TIMO. Tell me, why are people so excited about this TIMO thing?
Okay, imagine a world where instead of just two big players controlling most of the mobile market, there are dozens of smaller companies offering a wider range of services and competing on price. That's the potential of TIMO, the Thailand Independent Market Operator.
So TIMO is like a referee, making sure the game is played fairly and giving smaller players a chance to compete.
That's a good analogy. TIMO would create an open access wholesale market for mobile capacity. Instead of each company hoarding all the spectrum they win in the auction, they would be required to sell a portion of it, 15% to be exact, through TIMO.
So it's like a mandatory sharing system. But instead of toys, it's precious bandwidth.
Yeah.
But who would be buying this capacity from TIMO?
That's where things get really interesting. Think of those smaller mobile providers, the ones who don't have the resources to build their own nationwide networks. We call them MVNOs, mobile virtual network operators. They lease capacity from the big players, which allows them to offer more affordable services.
Okay, so TIMO would essentially level the playing field, giving these MVNOs a chance to buy capacity at competitive prices without being at the mercy of the big guys.
Precisely. TIMO would determine the market prices for this capacity, making sure everything is transparent and fair. This could lead to an explosion of MVNOs, each catering to specific niches, and driving down prices for consumers.
Can already see the ads.
Yeah.
Tired of overpaying for mobile data? Switch to insert clever MVNO name here.
Exactly. But it goes beyond just price competition. TIMO could also spark a wave of innovation. When you have more players in the market, you get more creativity and experimentation with services.
So maybe we'll see specialized MVNOs focused on gamers or small businesses, or even tailored to specific regions of Thailand.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. TIMO isn't limited to just MVNOs. It could also pave the way for companies using entirely different technologies to enter the market. Imagine satellite internet providers like Starlink competing with traditional mobile operators.
Wow, that would be a game changer. Suddenly, the definition of a mobile network becomes much broader. But let's dive into the mechanics of TIMO. How would this wholesale market actually work?
One of the key aspects is that TIMO would run two types of markets, forward markets and real-time markets. Think of it like buying electricity. You can lock in a price for future delivery, or you can buy it on the spot market based on immediate needs. The same would apply to mobile capacity.
So forward markets for planning and stability, real-time markets for flexibility. I like that. Caters to different needs and risk appetites.
Right. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The proposal gets into the nitty-gritty of how these markets would operate, even suggesting that they could go down to a level of granularity where companies can buy capacity for specific hours of the day.
Or even specific cell sectors.
Hold on. You're telling me they could buy capacity for, like, a single cell tower during rush hour on a Tuesday? That's the idea. It's all about optimizing the use of resources. And to manage this level of complexity, they're proposing the use of sophisticated trading algorithms, almost like bots, to buy and sell capacity in real time.
So it's like a stock market, but instead of trading shares of companies, they're trading bits of bandwidth.
Exactly. And these algorithms would employ what are called trade-to-target strategies. Imagine you have a financial advisor managing your investment portfolio. They have a target allocation of stocks and bonds based on your goals and risk tolerance.
I follow. So instead of stocks and bonds, these companies would have targets for how much mobile capacity they need in different areas and at different times.
Precisely. Their algorithms would constantly monitor market conditions, prices, and available capacity, making adjustment to their portfolio to meet their needs and minimize costs.
That's starting to sound like a scene from a sci-fi movie. AI-powered trading bots, battling it out for control of the mobile network.
It might sound futuristic, but similar systems are already used in other markets, like electricity trading. And remember those spectrum entrepreneurs we discussed earlier? They could play a key role here, adding liquidity to the market and helping to ensure efficient price discovery.
It's like a whole ecosystem is emerging, with different players fulfilling different roles. But let's get back to the big picture. TIMO sounds great in theory, but what are the potential downsides?
Well, one of the biggest challenges would be getting buy-in from the existing players, True and AIS. They're used to being the dominant forces in the market, and they might resist any changes that threaten their position.
That's understandable. Change can be scary, especially when you're at the top of the food chain. But wouldn't TIMO ultimately benefit them as well? A more dynamic market could lead to more overall mobile usage, expanding the pie for everyone.
That's the argument the proposal makes. It's not about punishing the big players. It's about creating a more vibrant ecosystem where everyone can thrive, including True and AIs. The challenge is convincing them to embrace a long-term vision instead of focusing on short-term market share.
It's a classic battle between the old guard and the disruptors. Are there any other potential roadblocks?
Another challenge is ensuring that TIMO is implemented fairly and transparently. There needs to be strong governance and oversight to prevent any manipulation or abuse by any of the players, big or small.
So it's not enough to just create TIMO. You need to build trust in the system.
Yeah,
And make sure everyone plays by the rules.
exactly. And then there are the technical challenges, designing and building a platform that can handle real-time trading of mobile capacity at such a granular level is no small feat.
Yeah, I can imagine the engineering headaches involved. It sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is, but thankfully, the proposal doesn't just highlight the challenges, it also offers solutions. For example, they point to an existing trading platform that could be adapted for Thailand's needs. The technology is already there. It's a matter of customizing it and integrating it into the regulatory framework.
So they're not starting from scratch, which is encouraging, but I imagine the regulatory hurdles could be just as daunting as the technical ones.
Absolutely. Getting everyone on board, hammering out the details, and building consensus will be a complex and potentially lengthy process. The report estimates a 2-year timeline for designing and implementing TIMO, and that's assuming everything goes smoothly.
2 years is ambitious, but not impossible.
Right. And they acknowledge that the real bottleneck might not be the technology, but the regulatory stakeholder process. Convincing everyone involved that TIMO is a win-win situation will be crucial for its success.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but we need to make sure we're not getting carried away by the excitement. Ultimately, any changes to the mobile market should benefit the people of Thailand.
You're absolutely right. We need to shift our focus now to the consumer perspective.
So far, we've talked a lot about like the technical and economic aspects of this proposal, but at the end of the day, what really matters is how it impacts everyday people.
Absolutely. The proposal dedicates a significant portion to addressing consumer protection and sustainability because, what's the point of a fancy new mobile market if it doesn't benefit the people using it, right?
Right. It can't just be a theoretical exercise.
Yeah, so
Let's talk about the potential impact on consumers. Would TIMO really lead to lower prices and better service?
well, that's the goal. And the report makes a strong case for why TIMO could be a win for consumers. Think about it. When you have more companies competing for your business, they have to work harder to keep you happy. That means offering better deals, more
Yeah.
choices, and top-notch service.
Classic invisible hand of the market at work. Competition drives progress.
Exactly. And the proposal goes beyond just assuming that market forces will magically make everything better. It highlights specific features of TIMO that would directly benefit consumers.
Oh, I'm all ears. What are some of those consumer-centric features?
One of the most important is transparency. TIMO would operate with clear rules, publicly available pricing information, and a level playing field for all participants. This would prevent those shady backroom deals that can sometimes disadvantage consumers.
So no more hidden fees or confusing contracts that seem designed to trick you.
Right. Transparency empowers consumers to make informed choices and choose the best services for their needs. Another key feature is TIMO's emphasis on quality of service. If an MVNO offers shoddy service or unreliable coverage, customers could easily switch to a competitor.
It's the power in the hands of the consumer. If you're not happy, you can vote with your wallet.
Yeah.
And go somewhere else.
Exactly. And this pressure to keep customers happy wouldn't just apply to the MVNOs, the big players, True and AIS. They would also need to up their game to stay competitive in a more dynamic market.
It's like a rising tide, lifting all boats. Everyone has to step up their game when the competition heats up.
Precisely. But let's not forget about the long-term picture. Sustainability is just as important as immediate benefits for consumers.
What do you mean by sustainability in this context?
It's about ensuring the health of the mobile market for years to come. Will TIMO lead to continued investment in infrastructure? Will it encourage innovation and the adoption of new technologies? These are crucial questions.
So it's not just about the next few years. It's about creating a foundation for a thriving mobile ecosystem for decades to come. How does the proposal address these long-term challenges?
By fostering a more competitive and innovative market, TIMO could encourage ongoing investment in network infrastructure. When companies see the potential for growth and profitability, they're more likely to invest in expanding and upgrading their networks.
So instead of just maintaining the status quo, they're incentivized to keep pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. And TIMO's open access approach would also encourage the entry of new players with innovative technologies, further contributing to the long-term sustainability of the market. It's about creating a future-proof system that can adapt to evolving needs and technologies.
It's like building a flexible foundation that can support whatever comes next, whether it's 6G, satellite internet, or something we haven't even imagined yet.
Right. And beyond just infrastructure, TIMO's focus on efficient allocation of capacity is inherently sustainable by ensuring that capacity is used wisely and not wasted. It maximizes the value of existing network resources.
It's like optimizing the use of a finite resource, making sure every bit of bandwidth is put to good use.
Exactly. And this efficiency also benefits consumers by leading to lower prices and better service quality in the long run. So it's a virtuous cycle. Efficiency drives sustainability, which in turn benefits consumers.
This has been a truly enlightening deep dive. We've explored the current state of Thailand's mobile market, the intricacies of auction design, and the transformative potential of TIMO.
I agree. It's clear that a lot of thought and expertise went into crafting this proposal. It's not a perfect solution, and there will undoubtedly be challenges in implementing it, but it's a bold and innovative vision that could have a profound impact on Thailand's digital future.
It's exciting to see a country taking such a proactive approach to shaping its technological landscape. It makes you wonder, could TIMO serve as a model for other countries looking to boost competition and innovation in their mobile markets?
That's a great question to ponder. It highlights the importance of thinking outside the box and challenging traditional models. If TIMO succeeds in Thailand, it could inspire a global movement towards more open and competitive mobile ecosystems.
And that's something worth rooting for. A world where consumers have more choices, better service, and access to cutting-edge technologies, all thanks to a little bit of creative disruption. So, to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring this topic. What questions does this raise for you about the future of connectivity? How do you envision the mobile market evolving in the years to come? Let us know your thoughts, and we'll see you in our next deep dive.